All right. Hello, Ryan Dahl here. We are back with another episode of PraiseCharts Live, and I always love it when I get to interview guys who are major influencers and worship leaders in their area, but they're also great friends of mine. It just like puts this vibe in the conversation that feels like you're just sitting talking with two old friends. So that's what's going to happen today with myself and Jon Buller. Jon lives around 4 hours from me in the great province of British Columbia, Canada. He is kind of what I would call a bit of a nationwide and certainly provincial-wide worship leader and influencer. He has run major conferences in our area, some of which I've been a part of, done a lot of worship leading, recorded numerous albums, written lots of songs, and now he's pouring himself into something called Worship Arts Canada, which is one of a number of things that he is pouring his life into, a tremendous resource that we want to get behind and share with you all about that. So I'm going to save the rest of this conversation for what you can enjoy with Jon and I talking together. So here is Jon. There we go. Have you gotten an intro like that before? How about that, eh?
Occasionally, yeah. For people that
Occasionally.
remember Johnny Carson, yeah.
Yeah, those were the days. Well, Jon,
Oh
so
yeah,
glad to have
those,
you in Praise Charts Live, and I'm really glad to have you as a friend. I find you to be a very inspiring person and very sort of, I don't know, I feel like when you look at me, you sort of see into my eyes and look deeply into my heart. And got to this day on Wednesday, September 29th, talking to Ryan Dahl in Praise
wow.
Charts.
Okay. Yeah, long story short, I grew
Yeah.
up in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Mm-hmm.
There's something in the water there. A lot of great artists and musicians come from Winnipeg. Culture is a huge thing. It's very cold in the winter. Maybe that's part of the reason why.
Yeah.
Uh, you either get into music, you either join a band, or you learn to play hockey. That's what it
One
is.
of the two.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. And anyway, so that's where I grew up, and man, I had a heart to sing and play. My all-time favorite guitar player is Eddie Van Halen. You know,
Oh, you mean that worship leader? Oh, that worship leader.
yeah, that guy. Yeah, exactly. When Lincoln Brewster came on the
Yeah.
scene and made electric guitar cool for worship music, like that was the thing for me. It's like, um, let the praises ring, all that
Right.
great stuff.
Oh, the good old 90s
Love,
worship music. You and I could talk
loved it.
forever about that.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of grew up. I was like, let me in the worship band. Like I was begging,
Yeah.
begging to be involved in the music. And as I came up, tried to. I started writing songs and serving at church in Winnipeg. I had the great privilege of starting it became a citywide worship event. We
Yeah.
we did a thing called Hear the Music Night, and it was happened every month for 5 years. So we did about
Yeah.
60 events.
Wow.
There's 800 or 1,000 people that would come to that, and what happened at Hear the Music was we were like, gee, people really seem to want to just sing. Like we just want to play at the feet of
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, though, there were all these other musicians who were me, 20 or more years ago. Like, can I help?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it became a worship event, obviously for the city and for Southern Manitoba, but it also became a training ground for musicians.
Hmm.
And so one thing led to another. I decided to kind of get organized, get intentional. I founded a charity called Hear the Music Ministries. We started doing conferences. The first one was called Worship as Story. Thinking
Hmm.
worship is really more than music. It's a narrative. It's our life. It's our created purpose.
Hmm.
So we did these worship as story things, and we would train musicians and dancers and painters and tech teams and all that kind of stuff. And I was also on the road, so I was kind of doing my thing. It was 20 years ago now. I released a CD called "Sinner and the Saint." It was nominated for a Juno,
Hmm.
and I wanted to be like Canadian Michael W. Smith.
Yeah.
I want to do my thing. I want to make a mark, make a living, and
Yeah.
serve people and worship. And so I was on the road. So with my songwriting career, worship leading career, I met a lot of pastors. I traveled
Yeah.
to a lot of churches as itinerant people do, and one of those pastors was ended up being my lead pastor. He was in Vernon at Vernon Alliance Church, and he invited me to come and work. So we moved from Winnipeg to Vernon. I spent 10 years, 12 years leading worship at Vernon Alliance.
And
And
who was that? Can I ask who that pastor
yeah,
was?
you
Are you
can. Yeah, Stuart McKnight.
Stuart
Yeah.
McKnight? Okay, very good.
And there's a little church in Linden, Alberta, and I
Yeah.
played a concert in Steinbach, Manitoba, and
Yeah.
the youth pastor from Linden was there, visiting his fiance, and he's like, "You should come and tour at my church." And I'm like, "Great! Anybody
I'm
that's
there.
going to give me a gig at the time,
Yeah.
I'll do
Yeah.
it."
Yeah.
So I traveled to Linden, met Stuart, and he eventually ended up in Vernon and invited me to come be the worship pastor there. Yeah, so I mean, what I discovered, and I think a lot of traveling musicians, worship leaders discover a pastoral heart,
Yeah.
shepherd's heart. Um, but they don't maybe know that it's there until they're given the responsibility to be a shepherd in a local church, perhaps. And that's what happened to me. I was like, yeah, I really like this. I wanna feed into the local church.
Yeah.
And I do want to do. I do love doing gigs, and I love traveling. But I think my heart is now. I guess you look back. I think about the. Is it the proverb, or no? It's somewhere in the Psalms. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart.
Yeah.
I found that as I continued to pursue intimacy with God and say, "What's my created purpose?" as opposed to, "Can I please be a popular Christian musician?" It's more like, pray for your creative purpose, get to know,
Yeah.
be intimate with Jesus.
Yeah.
The rest will take care of itself. It's not
Yeah.
going to be easy,
Yeah.
but so anyway, so all of that stuff, I feel like I'm kind of rambling the story. I said it was a long story short, but it wasn't really, was
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
All of those things have combined now for me to. I still get to do some songwriting and recording. I'm releasing an album soon. I'm excited. It's called Come Awake. But the thing that's driving the bus right now for me is how can I contribute to worship, arts, and leadership in our world?
Mm-hmm.
It's uniquely Canadian, but it's I think relevant. There's relevant things for all of our sort of
Yeah.
cultural contexts.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's what I'm doing now.
That's great. I definitely see as I listen to your story, and I bet lots of people listening in, especially worship leaders, can think, I mean, first of all, just like, let's be honest, I wanted to be the Michael W. Smith. I mean, I wanted to sit at the grand piano, and, I salivate with envy when I watch Michael on the stage with an orchestra around him. It's just like, that is my alter ego. But the reality is that only happens to 0.0001% of people, and the rest of us have to engage with the reality of, like, okay, what else, and for me, it's kind of gone into this world of PraiseCharts, and that's where my heart was beating. But for you, even as I'm hearing your story, it's like it's always been this pastoral thing. And even Jon, I've sat under you leading worship, and you don't lead worship like a rock star. You lead worship like a pastor. When I go away from anything and the lights and sound and all of that is happening, but I feel like you've got that pastoral heart that comes through. So you're just being now authentic to who you really are in the face of you not touring around in stadiums, with Michael W. Smith, or him, opening for you or something like that. So,
yeah.
So,
well,
anyways,
I mean, the heart of it is calling, right? If you're able to be attentive enough, and I guess humble enough, I'm not saying that I'm humble, but if you're able to humble yourself enough to listen to God for your purpose, it's way better.
Yeah, for sure.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know anybody. I mean, I opened for Michael many years back.
Hmm.
There are other Christian musicians that played at all sorts of festivals, and I've never met one of those guys or girls that wasn't that I didn't think that this must be their creative purpose. Like they're not. I don't know. I
Hmm.
just think if we find our calling, then we're at home. I never
Hmm.
met anybody like in that world that didn't seem like right at home. And
Yeah.
often enough, they would say, I didn't ask for this."
Right.
The Lord
Right.
just here I am. I wrote a song.
Yeah.
I led a thing. I met a
Friends are
guy.
friends forever, and it was over from there.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah. So we need to remember that though. We need
Yeah.
to be just constantly remembering like, okay, Lord, this is what I want, but what are you calling me to? I will delight
Yeah.
myself in you and take me and where you want me to go.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So here's what we're going to talk about today is John, your creative purpose seems to be unveiling or opening that up to other worship leaders in very specific ways. So that's what Worship Arts Canada really is all about is like pouring some gas on the, flame, if you want to
Mm.
call it that, or feeding the flame of these very like achievable, attainable kinds of creative purposes that people in the ministries of worship, and there's a lot of areas that you're just very specifically, we're talking like leadership, songwriting, dance, arts, painting. I mean, you also have your mind open to quite a vast spectrum of worship. It's not just four chord worship songs. It's like there's a lot of, it's very multidimensional. So if you're ready, I mean, I think we should just dive into the heart of this because your story and your passion and heart is going to come as we look into this. So what I've done is I've set up a screen here where John and I can take you through Worship Arts Canada. Now, if some of you are listening in going, well, I'm from the UK or I'm from America, so like, I don't know what this Worship Arts Canada thing is. Don't let Canada throw you off. I mean, it's online, so it's the World Wide Web. It's not the Canadian Wide Web, right? This is
Yeah.
just, hey, we're both Canadians, and so, this is just from where we live and that kind of heart. So I don't know, maybe you could speak to that a little bit as to even just the title, the brand, the overarching concept of Worship Arts Canada. What is it? What is it that is important to you there?
Absolutely. I see Eric on the chat here. He's in, I
Oh
think,
yeah.
Pennsylvania.
Okay, good.
And, I have benefited immensely from the resources that have come from, in particular, the UK and
Yeah.
the States. There's just a ton of great leadership, worship music, um, even the Hillsongs,
Australia.
for the
Yeah.
Australian worship community.
Yeah.
And so we draw from these incredible resources wherever they may be coming from.
Right.
But wherever we are, there is also a bit of a cultural uniqueness, I would say,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that can benefit us. So folks in Canada, they can be like, okay, yeah, John gets it. He's from Canada, and
Yeah.
people wherever they are in the world can go, oh man, that's how they think. Oh, I appreciate that. Oh, that's actually relevant to me. There's some really influential Canadian voices in popular music and popular movies and television.
Yeah.
So, we should. I think we can benefit from learning from everybody, whatever culture. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So let's look at the site a little bit. Let's take me a little deeper. Now I'm kind of like controlling the mouse here, but John is the brain and he gave me his personal login here, so which I've saved on my computer just to make him, tremble a little bit.
yeah,
But walk me
that's
through what you've got and then let's kind of go into the inner side of it, and so the kind of content that you have available that can pour into people's
yeah.
lives. So, yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Click over on free first of all, because
Okay.
it is a subscription-based site,
Yeah.
and so you can pay a monthly subscription. But I don't want that to scare people away. I want people to know that we're developing the resources there. So
Yeah.
on free, and so we have a video and resource library and a monthly newsletter, and
Mm-hmm.
people like Ryan Dahl may contribute to that newsletter,
Yeah.
or even contribute to the resource library, right? So
Right.
this is still in beta, but it's growing. There's going to be tons of PDFs, lots of music. All of this you can download, and it's all free.
Okay.
So
Beautiful.
maybe you have
Wow.
a smaller
Tons of stuff.
church,
Yep.
that you need video resources right now in this season. A lot of people need those for their worship. Maybe you have
Yeah.
a small group and you want to use this stuff.
Yeah.
There's no royalties. There's nothing. Or
What am I
live
getting
apart.
when I download? Am I downloading the video? Am I downloading the charts, or what are these?
Yeah, you're downloading the video. You can
Okay,
get the
good.
charts from PraiseCharts.com.
Oh, thanks for that. Gotcha.
And there will be some chord charts and stuff, but the felt need that I noticed was a lot of churches were calling me and saying, "Hey, like we're using YouTube for worship. It's a bit of a hassle because we don't
Yeah.
have this permission or that." I'm like, "No problem. I'll send you some songs. We've recorded a bunch.
Okay.
If you get a CCL license, whatever."
Yeah.
And then that little bit on the top there, benedictions, song transitions, that's going
Yeah.
to become a worship leader pack. So, it's kind of like, I'm just getting going here. I need to know how to transition in my songs. I need to know how to work with my lead pastor. I need a good benediction, whatever it
Yep.
might be.
Yep.
And
Practical
we'll just
words to share. Very good.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the next step is the premium membership, and that's part of my story. We already chatted a little bit about is these conferences we were doing. Worship as Story was the first one, and then it became the Levite Summit, and we did
Yep.
about 10 years of those.
Yep.
Yeah, and we hit COVID and we couldn't do our conferences anymore. And so Worship Arts Canada, the on-demand video resources are a response to that. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
we can't go to our worship conference. Well, we can get all of that stuff on demand at Worship Arts Canada,
Right.
anytime that we need it.
So we've got this area here where this kind of breaks down all the areas of teaching. I mean, I'm sure behind these walls here is tons of like, let's just dive into one, maybe going into the creative arts area. And this, of course, is what you would get once you're subscribed to this. So just walk me through what kinds of resources are we seeing here?
Yeah. So the creative arts, these are the folks that I think sometimes are a little bit forgotten, perhaps. The dancers, the actors,
Right.
the painters. We haven't maybe done super well in the church historically at learning how to tell the story with those art forms. Where music is easier, it's more identifiable, perhaps. And so that creative arts area is really like, how can we affirm and encourage and elevate the other art forms?
Yep.
A friend of mine, Mindy Oten, she talks about, there's that one there, finding authority in my calling. Like, I'm a painter. I've got something to say.
Yeah.
I'd like to figure that out. How has God called me to show,
right,
to say the things that I can say?
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, so I know that there's probably a lot of musicians being PraiseCharts.com, but there are probably also pastors or leaders.
Yeah.
And those guys and girls, this is a great resource, I hope, and pray for them to give to their teams. So it's not just for the individual. We cooked up a site license, which is quite a bit cheaper, and we can get a bunch of people, and they can all benefit from it.
And I've definitely seen when I've been sitting under your worship leadership, where I see that you're singing songs, and oftentimes you'll have a painter off on the side, on the left or the right, and they're like a lot of different churches will explore this, and it doesn't have to be weird. It could be we could normalize this kind of non-musical integrated experience with worship. Dance as well. I mean, I know dance happens in a lot of different styles of churches, certainly in more charismatic ones, but it'd be nice,
Mhm.
and it's nice to see that dance can also not have to be like on the fringe. It can be, it can be a normal expression of worship that's done appropriately, like lots of creative expressions like that. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, I
Uh,
agree.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
let's dive into a couple more. So then we go into the instruments and vocals. Now this is probably going to dive more into the heart of, people in praise charts world, wanting to like learn how to use their voice, how to play their instruments. Walk me through this area a
yeah,
little bit.
yeah. And honestly, Ryan, I know that there are lots of resources, and you can go on YouTube for free,
Mm-hmm.
to learn how to sing or play guitar or whatever. But sometimes it's just good to kind of drill down and
Yeah.
dial in on it and have a
Yeah.
place that you can go that you trust, that you don't have to
Yes.
wade through all the other stuff, and there's
Yeah.
no ads and all of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's not only about getting better at your craft, it's also about building your character. But at Worship Arts Canada, I really wanted to make sure that we're equipping in the areas of expertise
Yeah.
of the arts. And
Yeah.
so learn how to play your guitar better.
Yeah.
Learn a new tuning for
Yeah.
acoustic.
Yeah.
Learn how to work together as a rhythm section, drums and bass.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And philosophically, musical humility, I think, is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we could use a bit more of that maybe as
Yeah.
musicians.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm
Yeah.
speaking to myself, but like I should learn to listen more than
Right.
to play.
Yeah.
And so there's that too. It's like how do we work together? How can we,
Yeah.
really, remember that the congregation is actually a member of the band. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're not playing at you. We're
Yeah.
playing with you at the feet of God.
Yeah.
Like, don't arrange the music such that you alienate the people that you're leading, right? So
Yeah.
there's all that kind of stuff is
I
you'll
think
find.
one of the things that's so great about playing music in a church context is you're not just learning how to play music, you're also learning how to grow in character, because it's not just the sound that matters. It's how you relate to people, how you lead people, how you encourage. There's so many other layered elements that you don't just get from playing in a stage band, and or a gig or whatever like that. So that is something unique that, especially as worship pastors, we bring to the table. We're here to develop people, right? Not just musicians.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think competence requires character. You and I chatted a bit about that, and
mhm.
that's why Psalm 78:72, David led with skillful hands and a pure heart. Like,
Mhm.
it doesn't say David led because he was awesome at it.
Yes. Right.
It
Really
said
good.
David led because you could trust him. He was
Yeah.
authentic,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yes, he was good at it.
Yeah.
But and so we need to care for our character. We need to
Yeah.
attend to our spiritual formation.
Yeah. So speaking on that note, there's this another section here which I had clicked into, which really focuses on the leadership, like really beyond the music. This is speaking to probably a lot to the worship pastor, the leader, the band
Yeah,
leader, the human leader. So
yeah. And I agree with you, but I think it's also good to use that, have a broad understanding of leadership,
okay,
and
good.
just remind people like this: the second that you stand up in front of somebody or some people, and presume to perform or say or speak or do or express, you're leading them somewhere.
Right.
Like you
Yeah.
have an opportunity, and so that's why am I paying attention to my own emotional awareness. What is my heart like?
Yeah.
I play bass in the band, but am I leading people with my heart? So
Right. Right.
people like Mark Clark, we had a great leadership conversation there, but you know, that's good for all of us. And in fact, that's one of the next things that I want to develop for Worship Arts Canada is just the conversational tools
Yeah.
so that worship leaders can bring this stuff and actually have a conversation at practice or at coffee. What do you guys think about, your heart? Where are you at? Or
Right. Right.
whatever. So,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Okay, moving along here. Then we got a section on songwriting. This is getting really into the brass tacks of like adding to the music repertoires of our churches, and not just
Hmm.
singing the songs we find in Spotify, but
Yeah.
digging deep into our own songs. So
Yeah. Well, years ago, you gave me quite the honor. There was
yeah,
a songwriting contest with PraiseCharts,
right.
and I wrote a song called "Sing His Song," which was a song that I wrote actually in a course that I took for the Christian and Missionary Alliance Church when I was pastoring.
Mm-hmm.
And the assignment was do some research project about your church. I was like, could I write a song instead? And so I wrote a song, but I brought the theology in and applied it to the church context. And I guess what I'm saying is we should not only draw on the influential and meaningful and anointed music that we hear from other communities, but also create art and music as art that's relevant and speaks specifically to our church, our denomination,
Yeah.
or whatever. And so that's why I write songs, and we want to encourage people in their own churches, small and large, to develop that
Yeah.
in their context. So
Yeah.
yeah, so there's some great stuff there. Jacob Moon, he's been writing and singing for years and years. He kind of is the guy, the independent music electric
Yeah.
guitar guy, and Carolyn Aarons, and
Amazing. Yeah. Very good.
Ryan Dirksen and I have been chatting, and lots of people, not far beyond Canada, worldwide, are familiar
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Ryan Dirksen's music.
Yeah.
So great. There's
Fantastic.
going to be, and we'll just keep adding to that, right? We'll just keep having conversations and recording those, and trying to equip people practically, but also, just to inspire them to write.
Yeah. So the next area, I think this really goes into a place that's close to your heart, from what I know of you. The whole spiritual formation undergirds it all, and very central to what you have here at Worship Arts Canada. So tell us about your heart in this area.
Well, there's somebody that you and I both actually know quite well, Amanda
Yeah.
Cook.
Yes.
And Amanda is from southern Manitoba, and she kind of came through Hear the Music back when it was in its founding stages. And Amanda said something that has never left me. She talked about being a tree in winter.
Hmm.
And she said, if I'm a tree, let's say it's Narnia. She didn't
Mm-hmm.
say this, but I'll add to it. If it's Narnia and the tree could talk, and you ask the tree, like, can you please produce for me some fruit on your branches? And it was winter, the tree would say, no, not doing that right now. Like, I look dead,
Yeah.
but I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm resting, and I'll be back later in
Hmm.
spring, and I'll produce. And so for me, that's a little bit the awareness that we need to have as in spiritual formation, is like to know that it's not only about producing, it's also about resting in and recharging and reforming and pruning, doing all the hard work. We need to do that so that we can
Yeah.
produce,
Yeah.
so that we can bring the fruit. We need to sow, we need to plant, we need to let the sun shine, we need to water, and then we need to go into winter, and that's okay. It kind of
Yeah.
doesn't feel good a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's the deal. We artists, musicians, whoever's watching this right now, if you're in winter, a lot of us are in winter.
Yeah.
Symbolically, you know, it's okay. It's all
Yeah.
right. It's okay to be quiet. It's okay to rest in that. And so Amanda reminded me of that. It was like an interview thing that we were doing at a conference, and I was like, you know what, we gotta remember these kinds of things. And so
Hmm.
that's why we're trying to develop that at Worship Arts Canada.
Jon, I feel like I know this comes from a very personal place for you, and I don't know if for a couple of minutes you can just take us, one step deeper into your own life like this. You're leading and teaching and guiding this because this is part of your own story, that you're not just talking about, well, if you are in winter, it's like, what it's like to be in that winter season. You know what it's like to lead in front of 1,000 and then you know, and then feel like the aloneness and the desert of like, where am I going next? So I don't know. Could you just give us a little peek into your own heart? Like, because I know this comes from a very personal space for you.
Well, thank you, Ryan. I appreciate you asking me that, and um, yeah, my wheels are turning. A friend of mine said to me about 15 years ago. He said, "You're always going to hit the wall in life. You hit the wall multiple times. What changes over the years is the varying speed at which you hit the wall." And I was like, okay, yeah, I get it, because I've hit the wall a bunch of times.
Hmm.
But earlier on in my life, like, I hit it hard,
Hmm.
and it's like, oh my goodness, I'm burnt out, whatever it is. Um, I'm in a sort of emotional or spiritual crisis, and that has happened, and I don't know anybody that hasn't happened to, unless they were lying to me, I think. And so, one of those times in particular when I was pastoring, I needed to realize that, and I would go on like a day retreat and think, okay, I'll be better after that, and I would fill my tank up, but it would just empty. So another
Hmm.
another friend of mine said, well, have you have you considered the fact that God wants you to be empty?
Hmm.
And I was just in this burnout season. I wasn't writing songs. I thought I was done. I thought that it would never come back. I was just terrified. No creativity. And he said, have you considered the fact, and incidentally, a great book for us artists, is there's two by Mark Buchanan, The Rest of God and Spiritual Rhythms, that talk about these seasons and the
Hmm.
need to rest. Um, have you considered that God wants you to be empty? I'm like, that doesn't make no sense. It's I'm a Christian because God gives abundant life. I'm a Christian because He says He'll fill me up and give me hope, and it is for freedom that Christ has set me free. And He's like, no, 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 you don't get it. You can't make the repairs. Like, look at a hot water tank. I love this analogy. If you have a hot water tank and it gets rusty inside, no matter how many times you fill it up, it's just gonna leak out.
Hmm.
So, you know, it's maybe not a bad thing to remember that if you feel empty and you're having trouble filling yourself back up, there's probably some repairs that you need to do. And
Right.
that was so true for me. Like, I had to
Oh.
go to God and confess, and I needed a great counselor, and I had to attend to my mental health. And others, I mean, I don't even think that people are that interested in all the stuff that I was struggling with.
Yeah.
But thank God that the saints in the Bible, they get their stuff aired out for the world, but
Yeah.
us, we don't always have to. So do your repairs, right, and then God can fill you up. So that's kind of my story, without boring everybody with the details.
Yeah. definitely comes from an authentic place. And when you hear that story in behind it, and then you see Worship Arts Canada, and you can just trust this is coming from like a real place. And these are things that worship leaders need. Like I know we need more than charts and notes on a page. Like,
Mm,
people need to know how to become great people. And then
mm,
that's the package that's why you and I are sitting here together, because it's like we could work side by side. And
yeah.
yeah, I just see a few people in the chat are saying, Glenn is saying, so wonderful. Thank you for being a bit transparent, John, with us. I know it's a little bit risky, when I like poke out at that, but I wasn't looking for the details of
Okay.
your story. And yet I can see, like, just this is again, it's like your eyes, man. I see this authentic, broken, but healing place. And I appreciate that.
Mm,
Worship Arts Canada comes from a real place like that. Just looking at one of the last areas to focus in on, theology. So this is also something obviously that's really important to you, is not just singing great songs, but knowing actually what you're singing about. And you
hmm
guys are trying to develop that side of people as well.
Yeah, I agree. In the same way that character like equips us to be competent and
Yeah.
helps us to use our gifts, theology is like it undergirds um, the art that we express. So I think maybe a good way to think about it is if you're telling a story, you know, it needs to have um, there has to be some truth. There has to be it needs a foundation.
Yeah.
It needs a thread, and so our art is telling God's story. So we better make sure that we're telling the right story, that
Right.
it's true, it's orthodox, it's real, and it's biblical.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's just some great theological voices that we've included there, and
Yeah.
uh, it's also worth remembering, I think, that we don't always agree on everything in the in Christendom.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't need to explain that. But what's important is that we find the things that we do agree on and celebrate those.
Yeah.
And so there may be a voice that you don't agree with all the time, but there are certain things that we can agree on. And so those are the things that I'm trying to find and trying to share on Worship Arts Canada. Uh, the places theologically where most of us can come together.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Jesus is Lord. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
He rose from the dead. Yes, He changes our lives if we follow Him. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
um, God has a created purpose for me. All those kinds of things. And what's
Yeah.
the theology behind that can
Yeah.
elevate my songwriting or my pictures, my paintings, my dances,
Yeah.
my sermons, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, just kind of looking at an overview here, because I've gone into a lot of these sections, but this is like the full breadth of what it is really to be a worship pastor, and and a leader of people, is just being intelligent and
Hmm.
like growing in all of these areas. And even if you yourself are not like maybe you're not whatever all focused on songwriting, this is a resource where if you're leading other people, tell me a little bit about that. Like, how does a team engage in this? Is this just like, am I engaging one on one, or is it as a church and as a team? How would I, as a worship pastor, if I decide I want to like dive into Worship Arts Canada,
Mhm.
what are the options that I have?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been chatting to pastors the last few months specifically about that,
Mm-hmm.
and worship team members as well. We're doing some focus groups, and one of the things that most people have said is, "Can I get this resource for my whole team?" And so we've developed a site license. So, as an individual, you can subscribe monthly, like I say, there's the free access as well if you kind of want to check it out first. But as an individual, you can get a individual subscription, or you can get a site license for 25 or more people, depending on the size of your
Yeah.
group. So you've got, maybe you're a music pastor and you just want to focus on the music and stuff. That's fine. But you might be a worship leader, worship pastor, and you've got a few
Yeah.
different people. You've got some tech folks that you want to equip and train. There's
Yeah.
that as well. We
Yeah.
also do the one-on-one coaching. So people that really want to drill down, I have a team of six coaches in all of those areas, whether it's leadership or tech or songwriting or vocal coaching. And so you can sign up for one-on-one coaching as well. That's another way. So there's a few different kind of avenues in.
Great. A tremendous practical and deep level resource that is available. And thanks, Jon. It also comes from a great story, an authentic place. Thank you for sharing your story with us and your heart. And I know how much work this is and risk, actually, pouring your own resources. And I don't know if you've taken a mortgage out on your home or what it's taken to do this, but it's not just like go to WordPress and it's like there's a lot of content, a lot of relationships, and so I just want to definitely encourage any of you listening in, if you want to help your team elevate and deepen, this is a great tool. So thanks, Jon. So you should just go to worshipartscanada.com and everything's available to you there. And if you want to leave some feedback in our YouTube channel here, we'll also leave a link to all of that in the description for this. But right on, Jon. Well, and all the best to you. I hear the last quick little thing is you are on the last stages of releasing an album. Is that right? Is it all recorded in the tank, ready to go live to the millions?
Yeah, I sent the first single out to the digital distributor. So October 29th, that comes out. Follow me on Spotify or iTunes or whatever.
Yeah, well, there's tons of Jon Buller music already in Spotify, but that will be the latest. And I'm telling you, I know because I heard this guy's music, and it's great music. So appreciate you, and hope you feel encouraged. And I hope that people will follow along with you, Jon. Thank you for joining us today.
So much. You've been a mentor to me and a coach and a friend.
Yeah.
And thank you for what you do for the Worldwide Church. And thanks for having me today.
All right. Well, we work together as a team. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. See you next time on PraiseCharts Live.